I've been thinking about freedom in the last little while quite a bit, because when those people went out and protested in the street, and they were obviously protesting about their personal freedom, it raised a question in my mind about what freedom really is. And what does that mean? When our Prime Minister was in America recently, the Americans expressed to him that they thought Australians were absolutely crazy. Now, I seem to have that the other way around in my head, but they thought we were crazy because we give up our freedoms. We give up our freedoms for such things as a COVID-19 lockdown. What a terrible thing. And I thought Scott Morrison gave a really good answer to the question he was asked about that in America. He said there's a cultural difference. He said Americans value personal freedom as an ultimate goal, whereas Australians value fairness. And I thought that was very astute of him to say that. I have a quote which I'm going to read from my phone because I want to get it right. From Viktor Frankl. He was one of those psychiatrist type, analytical type people who worked out things. And he said something about freedom. He said, all freedom has a from what and a to what. The from what of man's freedom is his being driven. And the to what is his being responsible, his having conscience. That's from The Unconscious God. It sort of raises the question of what is the drivenness, what it is that we're being driven with as part of our humanity, when we need freedom from that drivenness. And I think the drivenness of humanity is that we want to prove to ourselves and maybe to those around us that we're okay, that we are okay in the world. Even though we have within our lives and our experience and our understanding of ourselves a good deal of evidence to say that we're not. We can identify those things that have gone wrong in our lives, and we are somewhat tormented by them because they make us feel that we're not okay, and so we're driven to feel that we're okay. So we want freedom from that. So Jesus comes along, and in fact he simply says to you, you are okay because I say you are. You are okay because God says you are. You are okay because you're one of my children, says God. You are okay. And when Jesus died on the cross, this was a terrible shock for those first Christian people. They didn't understand it at all. They might have had evidence and a bit of warning, but they didn't really understand. And when they came to try and explain this to themselves and to explain it to their first century friends, they used the idea of freedom. They saw in the death and resurrection of Jesus a sign of freedom. Freedom from this drivenness to prove that I'm okay, even though at the depth of who I am, I know there's some evidence to say that I'm not. So when Jesus dies on the cross, they see the idea of forgiveness as a sign of freedom. And so they give the example, they explain it to themselves through the example of a sacrifice. Like they understood sacrifice. From all of their history, they understood sacrifice. And so they said, this is like a sacrifice. Jesus is dying on the cross for our sins, for that sense that we're not okay. And he's saying to us from God that you are. And then they thought, well, that might be appropriate for Jewish people and for some people to understand sacrifice, but there's also another understanding of that, and that's the understanding of freedom of a slave. And so they developed the idea that Jesus had paid the price for a slave to be set free. Slaves to this sense that we're not okay. Slaves to the sense that we are dirty, rotten sinners. Jesus says to us, you are free. And what is the to which we're set free, for which we're set free? It is to love. While we're all bound up in our drivenness to prove we're okay, we're focused on ourselves. And when we're set free from that, we're free to love as Jesus loved, to forgive, to care, to commune with God, who offers all this to us, and with each other, because we're no longer in competition. We're now able to love one another. We're now able to care for one another. And so he comes to us and says, remember all this. Remember that you're free, that you're loved, that everything's okay. However bad you feel about yourself as a child of God, you're okay.